Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. Just playing a little Super Metroid here because, well, the games that I've been playing this week.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at...
It's pretty quiet, actually. The games that I've been playing this week have been sort of either story-heavy games. I finished playing through Trails in the Sky FC, which I started playing like years ago. And it's just taken me an immense amount of time of like playing it for a bit and then coming back months later to play a bit more and so on and so forth. It's like the Trails games are heralded as like the best some of the best JRPGs you can play. And that always just intrigues me. And so now I've finished FC, the first game in the Trails series, not the first game in the Legend of Heroes series. And usually, I like to play through the entire series. But that was a little bit much for me. Because the Legend of Heroes games aren't... Yeah, not really. So it's very dialogue heavy. It's very text heavy. There's a lot to read. There's a lot of characters and the narrative and all that. And it's not a very like adult, like mature themed kind of game. It's pretty PG for the most part, and it's very kind of like the good guys are good and the bad guys are very bad, and friendship will win the day because we're friends and everything is good if we're together. It's a lot of that kind of stuff, and I'm shocked at myself that I beat it. And I played it all the way through. Reading all the I didn't skip it because it would really defeat the purpose to skip all the dialogue. It's really more of like a visual novel. I mean, there's turn-based combat, but not an insane amount. And towards the end, like the final dungeon was very like turn-based combat heavy. The bosses at the end were fairly intense, which was good. But yeah, there wouldn't be much reason to skip through all the dialogue in that game because that's why people play it. So I'm surprised that I played all the way through reading everything, and I'm even more surprised that after I finished, I bought the second game because I guess I want more. The thing is, the first game ends like on half the plot being done because they split the game into two parts. So you end on a big cliffhanger and you're left with half the story, and it's like, well, fuck, I guess I gotta play the second one now. It'll take me years, I'm sure, to get through it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The reason I started the series, to be honest, well, no, I started it because I heard it's like one of the best JRPG series. But then I kept playing it because the third game is being worked on for Archipelago, because the third game, I guess, is like the most combat heavy and the least like dialogue heavy, and I don't know, some other aspects of it make it suitable for Archipelago. So I want to get to the third game. But yeah, I mean, it's really, I mean, for someone that likes text and reading and everything in an RPG and doesn't mind the sort of PG themes and stuff going on, I mean, yeah, it is pretty much what you'd want. But I just compare it to like Suikoden 2, which I didn't finish, and I would like to pick up the remaster now and actually play through 1 and 2. But when I played 2 for a bit, I mean, that game definitely had much more adult themes to it with the villain and everything, and yeah, it was much more mature, it felt. But not everyone's looking for that, I guess, so. The other thing that I've been playing has been some Fire Emblem ROM hacks. Fire Emblem 8 ROM hacks. There's some very good ones out there. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that Cerulean Crescent, which is a relatively new one, is probably my favorite Fire Emblem game at the moment. I mean, that one just, for me, takes like everything that's fun about the GBA Fire Emblems and just amplifies it all. And adds just so many like fun mechanics. Every character just is entertaining and has like fun skills and personal weapons and stuff. And there's so many like little mechanics that it adds. Yeah, for me, I think that's... So there will definitely be a Let's Play of it at some point. Probably skipping all the dialogue, because it is a pretty lengthy game if you read all the dialogue. And I am reading all the dialogue, because it's actually pretty good stuff. You definitely, you know, become very acquainted with the characters and everything, and the plot is pretty cool. And yeah, so Cerulean Crescent, if you're looking for an excellent Fire Emblem game, I recommend grabbing it. But yeah, so I didn't want to play any Fire Emblem here because I'd have to think. Super Metroid, I don't have to think. So that's that. So on this channel this week we had Dawn of War, some Crucible mod and stuff. That's fun. And then I think I also have some videos on Unification as well. But that might wait. We also have Dark Deity. There's only 5 videos for Dark Deity 1, but 2 has like 16 videos that I recorded because I showed basically the whole game. So that'll continue, but this week we will have Clair Obscur coming out. Reviews still aren't available, so fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I really hope it is just a really great turn-based RPG. But I mean, I think turn-based RPG fans have been eating pretty good within the last few years. We've been getting a lot of like really solid remasters of classic games. I think just this week we got the Lunar games remastered. And I was very tempted to pick that up, but I was like, oh, I got fucking Trails in the Sky here. I got Clair Obscur coming out. I'd probably like to record these, but I don't know. Maybe I should just play through them. I can't record everything. So, yeah, you know, like the big major developers are a bit squeamish on turn-based RPGs. I'm looking at Square Enix, of course. They just don't want to make Final Fantasy turn-based again. And they still haven't given us our Final Fantasy Tactics remaster. So I don't know. I don't know. But that's why I'm hoping that Clair Obscur is kind of a big hit and is, or a, you know, reasonably sized hit and is reviewed well and everything, and further encourages Square Enix and other developers to not give up on turn-based RPGs, because I think there's still a good market for that. So, yeah. Assuming it's not just garbage, we will be starting the Clair Obscur playthrough this week. Fuck. It's this controller. I got a new controller, and the D-pad just does not... It's just not as good. And I think this is the clearest test. Like, if I could go to a store to test out a dozen controllers, this would be the room. This would be like my exact test. It's just can I do mock ball first try? If I can't, throw it in the trash. I love this fucking controller otherwise, though. There we go. What is this? It's the Fly Digi Apex 4 something? I don't know. It was expensive. But it's a very good controller outside of the slightly iffy D-pad. Anyways, I digress. So yeah, more Dark Deity and hopefully Clair Obscure. If not, I've got plenty of other shit to upload. Over on the Exploring series, we had Alethophobia, which was a pretty trippy one. Fairly trippy. Let me just see real quick how that performed. Yeah, not amazingly well. Not amazingly well. Probably because the thumbnail wasn't really eye-catching, but what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Could start putting text in my thumbnails, but I've always avoided that. Because I felt like a video will speak for itself, people will watch if the video is good, but maybe that's not necessarily the case. This week we have another phobia one, Diagraphophobia from Rounder House. Another one of those kind of tragic ones, I suppose you'd classify it as. And it's another one that I really had no idea what I wanted to do for the art, so we just ended up with, like, sort of a fractal, not a but like a visualizer loop or something, and then the waveform. And the waveform seems kind of divisive based on comments that I've read. I also saw some comments that was just like, you know, I don't ever look at the video anyways, so what do I care, you know? And, I mean, certainly just throwing out the waveform and, like, a visualizer or something like that, like I did for this one, it's definitely a lot easier. Than, like, sourcing 40 different images or something like that, and finding everything that lines up with sort of what I want for the video and blah, 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 blah. So, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like, the Volgan doesn't really do much. As far as... I mean, he doesn't have a bevy of images or visuals in his videos, and he does fine. He has the text crawl, but, like, I don't know. I have subtitles. I don't really need to put text on screen. I feel like YouTube does that already for me. I said I didn't have to think. Right, okay, crap that, right. That's instinctual, but then I completely blanked it out of my mind. Right, so I don't know. I don't know. I will say it's probably not that big of a factor. On whether or not people watch the video or not. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little conflicted because it feels lazy. It feels cheap to just do that, and that's the video. That's it. But I don't know. Yeah, I would imagine most people don't watch the video anyways, and that, you know, I get plenty of listeners on the podcast version. That's just audio anyways. So yeah, maybe. It's a thing of, like, no one minds No one minds the way that it is currently with all the images, because you either like it or you just don't watch the video. But if I change it and I rip that out and just use like a visualizer, the people that don't watch the videos don't care either way, but the people that liked the images are going to be disappointed. So it's like, it's a change that's going to disappoint people, and that's like, why would I really do that just to be lazy? Anyways, that's that. So then next week, I think we're working on a 001 proposal. Fairly big one. The Stillborn City. So we're back to sarcasm. It should only be a couple parts, though. This shouldn't be a 6-part monstrosity. So that'll be that. As I said, at a certain point, I feel like if I want to do one of the shorter things on the poll, I have to just declare that I'm doing that, because people are never gonna pick that. Anyways. Right. So, not much else to talk about other than an RPG session that I did. So, let's see. They were out in the wilderness near Ilmire hunting, and they just were satisfied just hunting creatures. And then they, you know, investigated the fishmen, and they were going after the fishmen. And they had ended up slaughtering a bunch of fishmen, and others like ran away, and that's where we ended off last time. And so they had butchered the fishmen for their gills to use as magical reagents, because they obviously don't see the fishmen as being people. I think if I told them that they could also harvest hearts from like humans for magic, like you can harvest a human heart and use it for magic, I wonder if any of them would do it. But we did have one significant change to the party, and that's that I had made a custom paladin class for Tales of Argosa, because I know that LEGO really loves paladins, and so I was like, okay, you know, I want something, yeah, kind of closer to a D&D paladin, but that doesn't have access to cleric spells. So the cleric that I have put together for Tales of Argosa, instead of using the one they have in the book, basically gets access to divine spells, rather than just like a short list of abilities. So the cleric that I made gets access to spells, but I wanted a paladin, and decided to just take a bunch of the abilities that the book version has for the cultist or whatever. And then I know that LEGO's big on paladins being like a leader and having auras and stuff from 5th edition. So I was like, okay, we can work in some auras, because I think that's fun, and I like the idea of a leader paladin as well. So, yeah, I had whipped up the paladin, and he was very interested in it, so I allowed him to switch classes. And I wouldn't normally allow this, you know, but the fact that I had made the class and I wanted to see it get tested, and I was like, okay, so he converts, his character converts to being a paladin. So he loses access to his divine spells, but he gets access to some fun abilities and becomes a bit of a better fighter. But I decided that I wanted to make paladins sort of like a recognizable figure, you know. So I borrowed a thing or two from Axe. And I also decided that paladins, all paladins in this setting, like, to be called a paladin, you have to be a servant of Bahamut. which is not a particularly original idea, I don't think. But yeah, that I wanted that. So they all serve Bahamut, the god of metallic dragons, the god of good dragons. And they have to display a symbol of Bahamut on their person at all times while in public. They cannot hide ever the fact that they are an agent of Bahamut. And that has, that has pros and cons, depending on what circle of the world you're traveling in, of course. But, everyone pretty much everyone outside of, like, really in the boondocks knows the Paladins and knows what they stand for, knows what they do. And so that might open some doors and it might close some other doors or, get you killed, stuff like that. But, yeah, so you can't hide it. You can't be ashamed of it or anything like that. There's no subterfuge there. And you have to uphold the tenets of Bahamut. And I made them very generic. I could have put more thought into it, but I know that LEGO likes keeping it pretty simple with that. So it's the usual stuff of just protect the innocent and uphold justice and vanquish evil and blah, 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 blah. So he became a paladin. And he probably would have been better off just making a new character from level 1. But I can never pull this trick off, I swear. No, the timing is so tight there. No, push the button too early usually. Before it registers. And then I'm too late. It's so tough. He probably would have been better off starting a new character from fresh because his charisma is sort of garbage. Like, he has, like, 11 charisma or something like that. And normally you wouldn't even be able to make a paladin with that low of charisma. You kind of have to have, like, a 15 at least. But I figured he's converting, and this is his choice, so it's fine. It's fine. It is what it is. But, it introduced this sort of conflict within the group. The classic conflict of the lawful good paladin. And, the rogue. Except they're all kind of rogues except for him. So, my food just arrived, so I gotta kind of go quickly here. I won't go into too much detail, but, yeah, he has to uphold all these tenets of his religion. Otherwise, he's an oath breaker and he loses his divine powers and stuff, which he definitely doesn't want to do. And he likes playing as the really good two shoes, and I usually do as well when I'm playing like a video game, so I can relate. And so yeah, we'll get to the central conflict of the session soon, but they decided to just continue exploring, and they wanted to get to the froglings, so they kind of went in a roundabout way to try to get to the froglings. So they explored a couple more hexes, and they found one hex nearby that just has like an endless, or just like miles of really thorny brambles and stuff that they really didn't want to go into because it was going to be very difficult and painful and slow and everything. So they just like, okay, we'll walk around that. We don't know what to make of that. I alluded to the fact that it's probably just going to continue to grow. There's something anomalous here. There's something magical going on. Possibly, from the center of this whole thing. But they just didn't have a good way to kind of get through it yet. So they just walked around it and moved on. The next hex they went to is just kind of a bunch of hills and, forests and, blah, blah, blah. And the hex, the primary thing here is the Lost Crypt, or the, it's like the Forgotten Crypt or something. So it's a decently sized dungeon filled with undead and stuff. And so they decided to go check that out and explore, because there was like a big hill, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go check out the big hill. Along the way, I rolled a random encounter where they found like this little small tomb, this like ancient tomb that's like half collapsed in. And so they poked in there and they found a couple of sarcophagi and a golden statue of a raccoon. And that's all the text really said in the book. It was just, a golden statue of a raccoon. I was like, okay, shit, I need to do something about this raccoon. I need to come up with something. The book actually does get a little bit more information about this, so I changed some details. But I actually just very quickly, when I first rolled the tomb, while they were kind of milling about, I very quickly went to ChatGPT, and I had it just give me some details about like a D&D religion related to a raccoon deity. And it handled that very well, and even gave me some like boons and banes, which I used because Lego didn't want to desecrate the tomb or anything, so he offered up the statue a gold piece. And it gave him a little boon, you know, like a temporary boon. And then my nephew did want to desecrate the place, so he cracked open one of the sarcophagi, and I gave him this bane, which he immediately atoned for by giving like 2 gold to the statue. In hindsight, it probably wasn't good for me to reward the gold giving or punish the sarcophagi, because really that statue is worth 300 gold pieces, and I think it was meant to just be some treasure that they could just take and have. But at the same time, it does make the world slightly more interesting, you know, and they could have taken the statue. It's hard to say what exactly would have happened if they tried to sell it. Maybe there would have been some other bane involved, or maybe they wouldn't have been. I don't know. Maybe the deity is okay with it because it's spreading further awareness of it, you know. Look at the statue. And they rolled like divine lore to know about the religion, so maybe when they try to sell it, they mention the religion, and maybe the deity is like, okay, this is good, rather than sitting in a dusty old tomb. But they decided not to take it. The other thing they didn't take, as I mentioned, as soon as they went in, that there was a torch burning on the wall. And if you have any thoughts in your head, you would question how they crack open this ancient tomb, or walk in, and there is just a torch burning on the wall during the day. Torches last like an hour, you know. None of them question this whatsoever. None of them question, like, maybe someone was just here, or maybe there's something magical about the torch. Nope. Nothing. So as soon as they left, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna tell you, but I'm removing the tomb from existence, so you can't go back. But, you know, none of you questioned that torch that was burning on the wall. They all, you know, face-palmed. But that's, yeah, I just can't drill in these instincts into them. They'll never learn. They'll never learn. They just don't think. Right, anyway, so they went to the tomb, and they went down, they had their torch lit, and they come across the first door in the first room, and my aunt just, okay, I open it. Like, no listening at the door, no creaking it open or anything, just, no, I open it. And so inside that first room was a necromancer and her 2 guards, her 2, like, human guards, and they're part of the cult, and they're studying the undead here. And so they immediately went into combat, and they tried to talk him down, but it's like, these are evil cultists, you're clearly not evil cultists, they're gonna try to kill you. But it was 3 versus 4, so it wasn't that much of a fight. And I probably should have given her some sort of, like, necromancy spell. Just, like, I don't know, some sort of dark magic or summon undead or something, you know. Because it was a little bit too easy. But yeah, they took some damage from some stuff, so it was fine. And they ended up knocking out the necromancer and tying her up, and they continued exploring while waiting for her to wake up. And they passed by like a few more things. They did pass up like this murky pool of water, which did have some treasure in it. So once again, they missed some treasure. And then they get to they got to another room with a couple more sarcophagi, and they crack open well, actually, my nephew went and opened another one, but they were going to open themselves because there was some skeletal guardians in there, some skeletal champions. And so they get into another fight with those, and they definitely hurt a little bit. They're a little beefier than normal. And then I was using the underclock, which is a great little system. So the underclock was ticking down. It was about at 5 at this point. So a random encounter was about to occur. So they decided to just bunker down there, sort of, and just prepare for an attack. And, you know, moments later, six zombies come shuffling through one of the doorways. And they're like, okay, I mean, we can handle this, right? And they start the fight, and they drop one of them pretty quickly, and they almost drop a second one. But then the second one, there's you know, during the first round of combat, basically, the zombies turn. One of the zombies gets a natural 19 effect, which in Tales of Argosa is always like a special effect on either side if you roll a natural 19. So the zombie special effect, according to Tales of Argosa, was that 1d3 corpses nearby immediately animate to aid the zombie in combat, which meant that the dead zombie that they just killed awakens again, and the 2 skeletal champions immediately arise again. And so they were like, Lego was just like, we're fucked, we're so fucked. He's like, yeah, really great heroic paladin stuff. We're fucked. But my aunt, who had just hit in level 3 that session, picked her unique feature for her, you know, every character at level 3 gets a unique feature. So she picked a group teleportation ability that she can use once per adventure. And she can teleport, like, up to a mile, and anyone touching her teleports with her. As long as she's seen the location before. So immediately they all are like, okay, we touch her and she's gonna teleport. And so she did, and they teleported back to the entrance, and they survived. Would they have won? Probably. With it, you know, with good usage of major exploits, they probably would have won, but yeah, it would have been painful. So then the necromancer woke up, so they tried interrogating her, but you know, these fanatic cultists are not gonna really, I mean, you'd have to really like use magic to charm them, or a truth serum, or really put the squeeze to them and torture them or something. But they're generally pretty fanatical, especially because she can see he's a paladin, so he's not going to kill her. You know, he would break his oath to kill an unarmed individual like that. So again, that sort of bit him in the ass, but that led to the conflict of the session where he wanted to keep her alive. And, like, you know, he can't kill her. He doesn't really want to just let her go. But the others are just like, fucking kill her. She's a necromancer. She's evil. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, what if the paladin gave her a weapon and they forced her to duel to the death or something like that? Is that honorable? I don't know. Maybe. It's hard to say. There's a lot of nuance there. Anytime it comes to oath breaking, I think it always has to just be a conversation between the player and the DM for them to both agree that, okay, that was oath breaking. Usually it has to be a very deliberate act on the player's part. Accidental oath breaking, like what happens in Baldur's Gate 3, I think that's usually just bullshit. So anyways, they decided at the end to not let her go or kill her, even though the other players are like, we're gonna kill her when he's not looking. Which is usually how that goes. They decided to take her back to the druid, because maybe he can use a truth serum to get some information out of her, and he'll watch over her and everything. I think it's a little risky to do that, because the druid is by himself, you know. So she could easily, like, eventually break out of her bonds and, like, stab him to death. So they, you know, and I think he might bring that up when they take her to him. But yeah, that was the plan they settled on. So all in all, pretty good. They're really loving it. They're loving the game. They're loving the campaign and everything. So it's all pretty good. They're not getting a tremendous amount done, but they do actually want to go back into that dungeon. because they want a second chance at getting the dungeon, because they can see that there's going to be treasure in there. They did grab like this lockbox from the necromancer that had a bunch of money in it, and they grabbed like a silver statuette of the raccoon deity that is worth like 100 gold or something like that. So they got treasure out of it and they want more, so that's good. But all right, I gotta end here. My food arrived way quicker than I thought. Randomly stumbling upon a Super Metroid live stream. Yeah, unfortunately, the Hanging with Mangg stuff is me just chit-chatting while playing a random game. Super Metroid is fantastic, though. One of my favorite games. All right, so, yeah, this week, this channel, more Dark Deity, probably Dark Deity 2, and Dawn of War leading into Clair Obscur. And then on the Exploring series, Diagraphophobia, which is, pretty rough one, but very good. All right, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. See you fine folks